Good morning. Welcome to the Marion County Board of Commissioners meeting. It is Wednesday, October 14th, 2015. We're in the Senator Hearing Room here at Courthouse Square in Salem, Oregon. We'll begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So would you join us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So great to hear so many young voices saying the Pledge of Allegiance. That was a treat. So we always begin with public comment, and we do have someone that's come today that signed up under public comment. David Beam, would you like to come forward and make your remarks?
My name's David Beam. I'm an advocate for special needs population in Salem. I'd like to see that the funding for the mental health services after 5 o'clock keep going, because we need it for Marion County for services, because a lot of them can't read and write, and we need more doctors and more volunteers out there to help the ones that need it after 5 o'clock for Marion County Mental Health.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here and for your advocacy.
Thank you.
Anyone else that wanted to speak under public comment that didn't sign up? Then we will move to our flu shot presentation. This is the thing we wait for every year.
Don't we?
So Diana Dickey is here from the Health Department, and Ryan Flett, is that correct?
Yes.
And Barb Young, who is the participant.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us here to talk a little bit about the benefits of getting the flu vaccine. It is that time of year. So I know we'll have a couple people here demonstrating, so that's pretty exciting today. As you know, the flu vaccine is the best thing we have to prevent against the flu right now, and we recommend that everyone 6 months of age or older get the flu vaccine. And remember that when you protect yourself, you're protecting also your family members and coworkers. Some of them might be vulnerable to complications from the flu, such as pneumonia, so it's important to remember that you're protecting other people as well. And if you get the flu, it could last for 1 to 2 weeks, so it can keep you out of work for quite some time, or out of the things that you enjoy doing. One thing I want to make sure everybody knows is Marion County Marion County employees who work in Courthouse Square can get their flu shots tomorrow here in this building from 11 to 2. So that's available. And the health department has plenty of flu vaccine available, so the public can come get their flu vaccine at the health department. They can call 503-588-5342 and make an appointment for a flu vaccine. We have it for all ages. And finally, I just want to let you know I passed out a little flyer of what we're telling everyone this year to do, which is spread fun, not flu. All right, so with that, I will
let me ask you a couple questions though before you go into. All right, so first of all, you said that you have plenty, so no long lines this year then, right? And
no, just call and make an appointment, and we have lots of vaccine available.
Okay, and they also have them like at places like pharmacies and that kind of thing where people can go?
A lot of pharmacies have them now, so if someone doesn't have a primary care physician or can't get into their own doctor, they can come to us, or they could go to a pharmacy. Yes.
Now, last year, I think there was controversy about whether the flu vaccine that they got hit the virus that was going around. Is that right? So do you have any details this year on kind of where we're at with that?
We're told it should be better. You're right. Last year, it wasn't as effective as normal, but this year, that's expected to be a better match.
Okay. And then the last question I had, well, are you giving her the spray? Are you too old to get the spray now, Barb? Oh, I am so sorry.
That's because I'm the tougher one.
Okay.
He's
Now,
going to get the miss.
all right. So if you are ill, should you be getting the vaccine? I mean, what are the parameters? I know like age. That's what I mentioned inartfully. That with the spray, the mist, there's an age range that you have to be between. But then also, like, should you wait until if you had a head cold or whatever, should you get the flu vaccine? Should you wait until you're better, or how does that work?
If you're extremely ill, you may want to wait until you're better, and it would be hard to tell if you had side effects from it if you were already ill from something else, but like a mild respiratory cold or something like that, it's completely fine to get it. And you're right, the flu mist is available, the intranasal is available for age 3 to 49, so anybody in that age range could get it. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Brentano has a question as well.
Just one, Diana, you're pretty close to it, but I saw somewhere in the news or whatever, and maybe they just always try to scare you to make sure you get your shots, but of a particularly bad flu season. Have you heard anything like that?
You know, I think I saw that on the news as well. I haven't seen any official, anything come down from the CDC that tells us that it's going to be particularly bad, but we always just recommend, because it can spread very quickly, and so it's important for as many people as possible to be protected against it.
Okay, here comes John.
John.
Barb wouldn't let me get a shot today, so I got mine yesterday. I have 2 grandchildren, and I don't want to give them the flu, and I don't want to get it from them because they're walking petri dishes. But I think it's really important for folks to understand, particularly if they have children or grandchildren, that they get the flu shot so they don't pass it to their loved ones. And I got mine yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You are a model for the rest of the county. Very impressed. All right, we will turn it over now for the demonstration. Brave Barb will be there.
Do they do a close-up here, I wonder?
Don't know what they do.
People across the county falling over.
Don't look. That helps.
Do this all the time.
That's an exceptionally large needle.
I know. We're just like, wow, look at the size of that needle.
Like a piece of irrigation pipe. Good.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3, poke. Congratulations.
Yay. No pressure there.
People will have to be nice to you now. All right.
There you go. You did such a good job. Thank you.
You are very welcome.
All right, Kenny, hot seat.
You have paperwork for him?
Well, now we know who's not 50.
Okay. So, for the mist, you turn your chair a little more to face me straight
Hey, Barb, I got a much
on.
prettier Band-Aid when I got mine.
Okay.
Hello Kitty?
Yes. Yeah, something.
Okay, so have you had the mist before? All right, so might tickle your nose a little bit. Doesn't look like a Okay, so it's gonna be 1 puff up each nostril. Just look straight at me. Nice. That's perfect. Ready? Afterwards, go a little bit. And otherwise, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations.
All right, good job. We have 3 immunized people that we
Yeah.
know of in this room. So the rest of us will work on coming in tomorrow if we're a Marion County employee. If you're not, find your healthcare provider, or it sounds like the health department is there to help you. So
What a wonderful
Very
way
good.
to start a meeting.
yeah, well, it was a backup act that was pretty good for United Way. So we'll now turn our time over to United Way for their presentation. And Alicia Weathers is here, Randy Frankie, and Allison Colon.
Or Colin. You know,
C-O-L-O-N. She says that's Colon
that's Spanish.
in French. En français. Oui. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Alicia Weathers. I'm the Administrative Services Manager in the Board of Commissioners Office. We're here to talk about the 2015 United Way Community Campaign and Marion County's Employee Campaign. I'd like to introduce Randy Frankie, Executive Director, United Way of the Mid-Willamette Valley.
Thank you, and again, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here again. We're going to show a short video in a second that I think can really does a great job of underscoring the key issues around the board's high priority focus area for the next number of years, and do a much better job than I could going through it. So we're going to show that. But before I do, we at the United Way believe education is the most important engine for economic growth and individual financial gain. Currently, Oregon's average annual income is below the national average. Our unemployment rate is higher than the national average, and we rank 35th in the nation for education. Building a strong economy and lifting incomes will depend on improving results in education. We can change the trajectory for many of our students who are at risk of not graduating from high school. But to be effective in doing that, we must reach those students long before they enter high school. That is really the reason and rationale behind the board's focus of improving educational outcomes, and to do that, they decided that it made great sense to start at the beginning, where education truly starts, which is at birth. So they chose to focus on 0 to 8, and the two key measurements that they're going to look at over time to see if we can help improve educational outcomes are the kindergarten readiness scores and the third grade reading scores. Everybody tells us that the third grade reading is such a strong predictor. If kids can read at the right grade level at the third grade reading test, which is given at the beginning of the fourth grade, they have a much higher chance of graduating, and likewise, if they cannot read at grade level, their chances of not graduating high school increase dramatically, and the short video is really focused on that area.
Meet Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, and Mr. and Mrs. Johnson and Jordan, and Jamie Johnson. Two beautiful babies born on the very same day. Each baby has a good chance of landing in a good place in life, as long as one of them doesn't lose the zip code lottery. Like 1 million babies each year, Jamie's been born into a low-income family. And since Jamie's mom lacked access to good prenatal care, Jamie is much smaller than Jordan. And since they won't have access to brain-developing activities found in high-quality childcare, low-income children like Jamie will be 2 times more likely to experience developmental delays. It probably won't surprise you that by their 3rd birthday, Jamie's been exposed to a lot fewer words than Jordan. A whole lot fewer. And I imagine Jamie's 4th birthday won't be much better. By the time they reach kindergarten, Jamie will have already fallen behind Jordan in language and pre-reading skills by 12 to 14 months. And getting to school on a regular basis will be perhaps Jamie's biggest challenge. Unfortunately, a myriad of health, transportation, and housing problems will cause between 5 and 7.5 million Jamies to be chronically absent this year. But with summer right around the corner, you'd think Jamie would have plenty of time to catch up with Jordan then. Sadly, summer presents new challenges for Jamie. A mountain of challenges. You see, every summer, Jordan's learning will evolve by a month because of access to libraries, field trips, and camps, while Jamie will lose 2 months of school learning every summer because good habits such as reading haven't been reinforced. By the time they reach 3rd grade, Jamie will be between 2 and 2.5 school years behind Jordan in critical reading skills. And how much more likely is Jamie to drop out than Jordan because he can't read at a 3rd grade level? 13 times more likely, and the results of which are frankly catastrophic. Wait just 1 minute there, folks. The story doesn't end right there. Fortunately for Jamie and Jordan and all of us, there's a whole lot of folks out there that believe neither luck, nor lottery, nor zip codes should dictate Jamie's future, who also believe that our schools can't do it alone. Luckily, there are leaders, organizations, and good people out there that are dedicated to believing in a whole lot more. The solution right now is relatively straightforward, if we can commit to 4 things. Number 1, we need to make sure our kids are healthy and ready for school. Number 2, we need to ensure they grow up in a word and book-enriched environment. Number 3, we need to engage them in healthy and educational activities over the summer. Number 4, we need to make sure that Jamie attends school every single day, because at the end of the day, you and I both know that lotteries, zip codes, and plain old dumb luck don't really author our children's future. We do.
So United Way of the Mid-Willamette Valley has joined the 3rd grade reading effort, and we are working closely with our early learning hubs, both here in Marion and Polk County as well as Yamhill County, to understand what they're already doing so that we hopefully can come alongside them and help fill some of those gaps or extend some of the issues they're trying to deal with. Obviously, schools are going to be an important partner in this whole effort because if we're going to work with families and kids before they get to school, we need to make sure that what we're working on is consistent with obviously what they're going to deal with once they get to school. So we're pretty excited about this. This is a fairly long-term initiative the board's focused on. And it's going to take a lot of work. And I think as the video made very clear, it's not just about schools. It's about all of us and what each of us can do in our own way to help these kids and families get ready for school and succeed. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Well, not a question, Randy, but I'm very happy the United Way's picked this up. The conclusions that we saw in that film were the same ones I reached a few years back, and I tried. Don't know if I made any progress, but I'm very happy that the effort continues in a way that looks to be successful.
Thank you.
And maybe tagging on to that question, so United Way took Reading for All from the county when the commission system changed.
Correct.
And are you shaping Reading for All to kind of align with this 3rd grade reading effort? Is it still going to be more of a broad-based effort, or kind of how are you using that?
I think our Reading for All is still going to be the broad-based effort. I think it made a lot of sense originally. Obviously, there will be an emphasis on the early years to get kids ready for 3rd grade reading. But I think the approach that we used initially in that still holds true today, and we're going to continue that approach. What we have been doing, I guess I would say, is sort of Reading for All in miniature, which is simply to say we haven't done a broad community-based book drive yet, but we are doing book drives in different companies. We're working with a number of companies that are excited and want to do their own book drive, so we've been helping them get started on that. Hopefully the concept is this spring we will do a much larger drive to gather books to distribute for the summer period to impact that summer slide when those kids don't get the resources they need, and then distribute those books to libraries and other organizations that are hosting summer programs for kids.
So are we kicking off our Marion County campaign, Alicia?
We're kicking off the Marion County campaign on Monday, October 19th, and the campaign runs through November 13th.
And what do we need to know about that?
So Marion County, the employee campaign in Marion County is a team effort. It's focused on helping United Way meet the needs of the community. Representatives from each department come up with creative ways to make Marion County's campaign fun and interactive each year. Many of them have joined us in the audience today, and I would like to recognize their efforts each year. They've put a lot of work into fun events like the Public Works Breakfast that raises a lot of funds every year. We do a big raffle. Jean stickers and different ideas to increase participation. And really, this is Marion County employees' opportunity to participate and contribute to their community through the United Way campaign.
Very good. So we're all organized and ready to go? Yes?
It sounds like it. You guys do a good job every year.
We do. We got an award a couple of years because we
Yep.
went from being sort of good to much better. How's that?
A
We
fair
didn't get it
description.
last year, just so you know.
Well, yeah, we need to continue to keep moving up. And it sounds like, Randy, with this effort, you're looking to increase the amount that United Way is bringing in each year. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Basically, we're staying with the same goal we set the previous year because, quite candidly, we didn't reach it. It was a challenging year in fundraising, although we did fairly decently. Our total dollars under management went up about 14.2%. You want to compare that with United Ways across the state, we're number 3.
That's good.
There was like 16 United Ways, only 5 of them saw an increase in fundraising. So it was a challenging year. So I'm pretty pleased with the growth that we did have, and I think we're well positioned to do even better this year.
So what's our goal?
I think it's 225,000.
Okay.
But excuse me, 2,225,000.
That's what I thought too, right?
I forgot
So
the
yeah, 2
small
million, right,
decimal
okay,
there to
right.
start with. Sorry about that.
So a little over $2 million then.
Yeah.
2.2. And then what's our goal in Marion County?
I think that we're trying to get close to where we were in previous years. Last year we were at almost 23,000, and we'd like to increase this year.
Do we have a goal? Have we set a target?
I don't know if we have an exact target.
25,000. There we go.
number.
That's a good goal. All right. So we'll see what we can do with that. All right. Anything else?
Nothing me. Just really appreciate the board's support that you've given every year to the campaign and the good work of the volunteers in the county.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Alicia, and to everyone here for their work. I know how hard you work to get the departments rolling. We got to get everyone energized around this. So thank you.
Thought for sure John would tell us that the board's office will be increasing. Just assumed it, huh?
Commissioner, only if you decide to give some.
Well, I always do.
And you know, you and I have sort of had a contest about who gave the most.
So up your goal.
Well, and the other thing to note is that you can do payroll deductions. You don't have to make like a lump sum contribution. You can have a little bit taken out of your check every paycheck, and it adds up.
I do that already.
Well, good for you.
Yes.
All right.
It's
So-
only because of Randy.
So
though.
in the contest, do you count that plus what you give with Sam, or do you just count the?
Yeah,
Okay, we'll find out about that later. Okay, we're moving right on to the consent calendar. So Commissioner Brentano, even if it's not your turn, you're reading today.
I refuse. It's not the right week. Madam Chair, I would make a motion to approve the consent calendar this morning. First items under Business Services Human Resource, we establish and adopt the classification policy of Policy Analyst number 114. Health, approve the intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Department of Human Services for $300,000 to provide vocational rehabilitation services through September 30th, 2017. Public Works, receive hearings officer decision approving conditional use case CU 15027 Cervantes, clerk's file 5701. And the final is under Tax Office, approve an order authorizing the advancing taxes for certain taxing districts for the year 2015 to 16.
Okay, and that is, I was looking, that's a very long list of districts. Yeah, you think that there aren't that many, but there are a lot. And I think this is where we advance the money because it's just a small amount of money, and to do it in little increments would not make any sense. All right, any discussion on any of them other than that last one? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those are approved. Now we have 4 items under action, although item number 2, we're going to defer because we have a public hearing, so it will be last. So the first one is under the district attorney, and it's to consider approval of a proclamation designating October 8th through 24th, 2015 as National Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting Week in Marion County. We have Doug Hansen, Kim Larson, Pete Teller, and the Leslie Middle School peer helpers who have all been here in mass. We're very thrilled to have you here today, so thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kim Larson. I'm the Director of Victim Assistance with the Marion County DA's office, and I'm here with Doug Hansen and Pete Teller this morning to talk a little bit about the Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting project. We have worked together as community partners for a long time. You've heard me talk about the importance of community partners working together to end violence in our community, as well as responding to violence in our community. And the Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting project is definitely one of those key partners for us in trying to accomplish that. With victim services, we spend all of our time responding to violence and to working with victims of violence. The great thing about the Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting project is that they go a little upstream and look at prevention and look at how we can keep violence from happening in the first place, and trying to instill in people that value that violence is never going to be an appropriate choice. And so it's a program that we wholeheartedly support within our community and appreciate the efforts that they make. So I'm going to turn it over to Doug and to Pete to talk a little bit more detail about the program.
All right, thank you very much, Kim. Board, thank you so much for allowing us to be present today. I am one of the founding members of the Hands and Words Not for Hurting project. Ann Kelly is the executive director and president. This organization started 18 years ago, and I'm happy and proud to say that I've been a part of this organization for the last 18 years. I'm on the board of directors for that project. As Kim said, this is an integral piece that we really have put forth throughout Marion County, but this started in Ann Kelly's basement in her home. And I know that you all know Ann Kelly. I have known her since I was 6 years old. She's like another mother to me, and so that's my passion, was to start working with her as well with this project. This is an anti-violence organization. We are really focusing on really everybody, but it started in the schools. We have currently now have our project in all 50 states, also 15 foreign countries that have endorsed our project. And the amount of prevention that has come from this is really astronomical. When we talk about bullying in the schools, clearly the thing that happened in Roseburg recently is a huge thing that we look at to see how can we stop this, how can we help prevent this. So I have here today, folks, a slideshow that is just a glimpse, really, of this project and all of our partners that we have throughout the United States and other countries. Pete Teller is here as well from Leslie Middle School. He's a counselor, and he has the peer helpers here as well, who you see in the audience today, that are going to help us go through the pledge at the appropriate time. But for now, I'd like to turn our focus over to a slideshow that will give you just an idea of the project and how effective it has been. So if I could play that now, I'd appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I'd like to introduce Pete Teller now.
Morning, Commissioners. It's again a real pleasure to be here this morning and to bring students here to say a few words for you. Before I have them come up, just wanted to mention as well and follow up some comments that Doug just made. Just recently, we had a kind of a frantic request that came from the Red Cross crisis team that responded to Roseburg, asking for materials to be able to use down at Umpqua Community College. And so our Leslie Peer Helper stepped up and provided those hands and words are not materials down there so that they could be used as part of the crisis response by the Red Cross team. So we're very happy to have had a small part in helping out with that very tragic situation down there at Roseburg. This time I'll have our peer helpers come up and line up.
The 18th annual Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting Week that starts next week is more than a proclamation read at public meetings. It is a commitment, a choice, a way of life. The beautiful 14-word pledge, I will not use my hands or my words for hurting myself or others, are words that both unite and inspire.
Imagine a world without hate.
Imagine a world filled with random acts of kindness instead of random acts of violence.
Imagine world peace, not world war.
Imagine a world where a person is not judged by the color of their skin. Imagine a world that cares more about the content of a person's characters than of the contents of their wallet.
Imagine a world where women control their own destiny. Imagine a world where children don't go hungry.
Imagine a world or a country that has 3.5 million homeless people and 18.5 million empty houses can solve a human housing problem.
Imagine a world where immigrants and refugees can have the lives they deserve.
You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. Please take the pledge and mean it with your whole heart.
So if it would be appropriate either at this time or as soon as the proclamation is read, we can lead the audience in the Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting pledge.
So since the pledge is part of the proclamation, maybe we could combine that. That might make some sense. So
sure, you bet.
We can go ahead and approve the proclamation, and then we can read it. And then when we get to the part where we're going to do the pledge, we'll stand up and actually take the pledge. Does that work? Work for you?
You just tell me.
All right,
when and
I'll
where.
orchestrate it. 2 notes, right? So.
But I do have one comment first. You've given
Sure.
us some materials. And I know Commissioner Cameron was especially moved last year, and I think it's a different color, but he actually wore his bracelet for the entire year every day.
Nice.
It's a little small for me, but just so you know.
It's got a skinnier wrist.
So we'll make sure he gets a new one. And I just kind of want you to know that it's stuck with him and sticks with us and does matter. So, Madam Chair, I'd make a motion that we do approve the proclamation that designates October 8th to 24th, 2015 as National Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting Week in Marion County.
All right, I'll second your motion. We're actually not doing it as National Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting because we're not allowed to declare a national holiday, but we are declaring it within Marion County. So any further discussion? Want to also, before we get into the proclamation, thank the peer helpers for coming. You did a great job, and we always love having you come every year. And the other comment when you were talking about 18 years, Doug, I was doing the math. First of all, I had to find where that song came from. So it's Barbra Streisand that sings that song.
It is Barbra Streisand.
It was released in 1997, so that was about 18 years ago,
Yes.
which is interesting. All right, so I was trying to figure that correlation, and there was a a celebration at the Elsinore Theater, and my son was involved in that, and we still have the purple gloves. Like when I go through this drawer, there's always at least one of them. It's in the drawer, so we remember that. And that might have been, he's 29 now, so that might have been very close to the time when it started, so.
Yes, and thank you for those comments. It is amazing to see how widespread it is and how it is here at home with us here in Marion County too, where it all started, and how strong the community is really supporting this project. And so we appreciate that in your time.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, we will read the proclamation and want to use this version of it here.
Really? I was
Yes,
all set up with the
because-
larger font. Now you're gonna.
Well, because we made
I see.
a few
Fine.
things like taking national out and
All right.
fixing a few things.
Proclamation. Whereas a community without abuse and violence is a dream we all share, and whereas any form of mistreatment of another is abuse, and all people have the moral and legal right to live free of abuse and violence, and whereas each of us must come to the understanding that it is within our personal power to choose not to abuse and violence to use abuse and violence to resolve conflict, and whereas we recognize that respect for ourselves and others is key to developing healthy relationships at every age and in all circumstances, and
Whereas the principle of nonviolent resolution of conflict must be taught to our children and practiced within each of our families. And whereas verbal and emotional abuse can be just as damaging as physical violence to a person's self-worth, creating scars that are carried for the rest of his or her life. And whereas verbal abuse such as name-calling, insulting, and belittling frequently escalates into simple force, like pushing, grabbing, or slapping, and the worst scenario is the escalation to rage, serious violence, and even murder. And whereas we, the Commissioners of Marion County, together with communities around the country and overseas, recognize the Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting Project's pledge is an effective tool in abuse and violence prevention education. Now therefore, the Marion County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim the week of October 18th through 24th, 2015, to be the 18th annual Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting Week in Marion County, and encourages all citizens of Marion County to join hands and hearts to unite as a family and a community to pledge, both privately and publicly, that... We ready? I will not use my hands or my words for hurting myself or others. Thank you. So we have a couple of these to sign, and who gets one of these copies? Is that Ann or Pete, or who? We have the kind of the fancy ceremonial ones here.
Right, and one of the copies I would get to Ann Kelly, yes.
Okay, so why don't you pass that
Kevin's
down?
stamp.
You want us to get, well, Kevin can't sign it because he's not here, right?
It says
So-
not present, doesn't look like he just ignored
Right,
it.
okay. So we'll get that on there as well. All right.
Great, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, and having us be present is huge every year, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being here today.
Kids too.
And the youth, yes. And Kim. So the next item on our agenda under finance will be approved after the public hearing. So we'll move right down to the health item, number 3, and that's consider approval of the Kaiser Permanente Healthy Eating Active Living, or HEAL, initiative grant for $250,000 to provide support to the Woodburn Community Health Initiative through January 2018. And there is no name after this one, so Scott, you will. Looks like this got added. Right.
So I think with our move to a new location and Rod, our administrator, being out of town for an extended period of time, or perhaps not as well prepared in getting names and materials to you in advance. I'm Scott Richards, Division Director with the Health Department, attending this board session for Roderick Calkins, our administrator, and it's my pleasure to introduce Peter Davis. Peter is our program supervisor for rural and prevention services, stationed out of Woodburn, and has been instrumental in pulling together a group that was successful in receiving a grant from Kaiser Permanente to do some new and neat things in Woodburn.
Thank you, Commissioners, for having us here today. Today I would come asking for your support and guidance in regards to the HILL grant, Healthy Eating and Living, which will help fund the Woodburn Health Initiative. The HILL grant was awarded to us by Kaiser Permanente. It was written by myself, Diana Dickey, who is now actually the immunization supervisor or coordinator and was just here, Emily DeHare and Rachel Posnick, who's our epidemiologist. The grant itself, we wrote it to focus on 3 different areas, which is physical activity, nutrition, and environmental and system changes. We've partnered with many different folks in Woodburn, many different organizations such as the hospital, Salud, the city of Woodburn, etc. And this grant will hire a .8 health educator too, who will be instrumental in working toward the goals of the grant, which is to do things such as workplace wellness. We're working with the city of Woodburn in order to take a park and kind of revitalize it and make it into a healthy activity park. So there'll be a walking path and there'll be some exercise activity stations around there. We're also going to be doing walking assessments and then creating maps so people have safe places to walk. And then we're also going to be working with the hospitals to help recruit for Tomando Control and Living Well, which are programs for healthy living for folks with diabetes.
Very good. You have questions?
No, and I certainly don't see anything that you wouldn't want to support. So, Madam Chair, I'd make a motion that we do approve the Kaiser Permanente Healthy Eating Active Living Initiative grant for $250,000 to provide support to the Woodburn Community Health Initiative through January 2018.
And I'll second the motion. I was just looking at the application itself here that we now have on our paperless online system. And it's really remarkable that we got $250,000. That's a large grant for this. It looks like it was a special application just for this type of HEAL activity, right?
Sure. It was a competitive grant, so it was kind of regional to the Pacific Northwest. I believe they had lots of people apply, and then they narrowed it down to 10 who they invited to do the formal application process. And then from that, 4 or 5 were actually funded. So we're very proud of it.
Excellent.
I think it'll be great for the city of Woodburn.
Right, and Woodburn certainly has a lot of kind of unique circumstances in terms of its demographics and how the town is laid out and their amount of resources that they have. So I think it's a really good setting for this type of work to go on. So appreciate that. All right, so a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, it's approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Last item under action before we move into our public hearing is Contract Review Board. So we'll put on that hat now, and we will consider approval of a special procurement to contract with Liberty House and Center for Hope and Safety to provide victim assistance services through June 30th, 2017. Camber Schlag and Jeff Wood, Commander Jeff Wood, are here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Camber Schlag. I'm the Contracts and Procurement Manager in the Finance Department. The Sheriff's Office requests that the Board of Commissioners consider approval of the special procurement exemption for the award of victim services as outlined in the 2013 House Bill 3194 and the Criminal Justice Commission grant requirements. Approval will permit the Sheriff's Office to enter into contracts with Liberty House and the Center for Hope and Safety to provide victim services for the 2015 through 2017 biennium. The findings must establish that the use of a collaborative approach for contracting for the necessary services does not diminish competition, is reasonably expected to result in a cost-time savings for the county, or promotes the public interest in a matter not practically realized by complying with the county's public contracting rules as outlined in the Marion County Public Contracting Rules 20-0285 and of course the Oregon Revised Statute 279B.085. We published a public notice in the Orpin system for a week, and we did not receive any responses, comments, or questions or protests regarding the special procurement. At this time, I will give it to Commander Jeff Wood to discuss the findings.
Thank you for a moment of your time, Commissioners. I'll do my best not to rehash what Commissioner Carlson talked about last week during her Justice Reinvestment grant submission. But just to memorialize some of the conversations that we've had in the past, as you well know, House Bill 3194 passed during the 2013 legislative session. Within the bill, there was a requirement that a minimum of 10% must go to community-based nonprofit services for victims. As just a reminder, the goals of Justice Reinvestment incorporated in House Bill 3194 were to divert prisoners from the Oregon Department of Corrections, to reduce recidivism, to enhance public safety, and maybe on point to this request is offender accountability, and specifically to provide services to victims of crime in Marion County. Knowing that, and tasked with the Justice Reinvestment Plan, the Public Safety Coordinating Council, chaired by Commissioner Carlson, formulated a plan, a Justice Reinvestment Plan, and it did include those services to victims. What was interesting and incredibly collaborative, inclusive, I might add, was a panel of council members and service providers mapped out those services available in Marion County, including critical service gaps. Those gaps were identified as tangible services and assistance for victims, bilingual services, staff to support families, and the ability to provide child abuse examinations as required by Oregon law. The Public Safety Coordinating Council solicited requests for proposal, for lack of a better term, to any agency or nonprofit within the county, of which several were received. I believe it was about 5. 2 were specifically from private, community-based nonprofits, and those 2 nonprofits were Liberty House and Center for Hope and Safety. The proposals included a mental health manager and therapist for Liberty House, a children's advocate and intake coordinator, as well as a bilingual advocate for the Center for Hope and Safety. Those proposals were unanimously supported by the Public Safety Coordinating Council. I'd like to add that this was, again, a very impressively open and collaborative process. This special procurement is not designed to omit any one program or not hinder competition, but rather for those goals and as I outlined with 3194, and to provide those services that we are mandated to do. So with that, we are available for questions.
Do you have questions?
Just such a minor one, but you note, and I see in the findings for exemption that there were 5 agencies, only 2 are listed. Just curious who the other 3 were that went together to come up with this. If you know off the top of your head.
The 5 victim services agencies that worked together in the presentation at the Public Safety Council and in the work group meetings where we flow charted the services included Kim Larson from the District Attorney's Office, Emily Collins from the City of Salem, who's a victim advocate, Annette Chrissimer, who is the victim advocate for parole and probation, Jane Downing from Center for Hope and Safety, and Allison Kelly for Liberty House.
All right. I just didn't see it in the write-up.
Yeah, but the grant
curious.
requirements require that it be a
Yes.
nonprofit, so the other 3 are government, DA, Parole and Probation, and City of Salem.
Correct.
So the 2 remaining nonprofits were there. And if I have some comments, but if
Go
you...
ahead.
Okay. So first of all, thank you. And I didn't listen for this when you were going through your presentation, but this has been on Orpin since October 6th, and we have not received any protests. Is that correct? Correct. All right. Or comments. So I appreciate the work doing this. I just want to lay out why we're asking for this on the day that the grant application is due. I actually have a text here from Hitesh saying that the cover page is on my chair to be signed, and he will be sending that in to the Criminal Justice Commission as soon as we're done with this meeting and go through this action. And I pulled out the Justice Reinvestment Grant Program final application, which was released, I believe, in July. And there was an expedited application due date of August 19th. So I think 23 counties or something like that went through that. And then the final application due date is today. And I think most of the larger counties probably waited until the longer time because they have more programs and more to write and so on. And the smaller counties that had less funding coming in and needed the dollars because they couldn't float, if you will, the money applied earlier. But in looking through the application, I was looking for where it actually requires the nonprofits to be named, and I cannot find a place in the application where it does. There is an Appendix A, which is an example grant award agreement. So this is not our contract yet, but this is what they are saying could be our contract once the application is approved. And it has a section on procurements. It says that the grantee shall make all purchases of equipment, materials, services under procedures that comply with Oregon law, including provisions of the Oregon Public Contracting Code and rules. All procurement transactions, whether negotiated or competitively bid and without regard to dollar value, shall be conducted in a manner so as to provide maximum open and free competition. Justification must be provided to the Criminal Justice Commission for any non-competitive or sole source procurement, and that's what we're doing today, right? Justification should include a description of the program, what is being contracted for, an explanation of why it is necessary to contract non-competitively, time constraints, and any other pertinent information. All sole source procurements in excess of $100,000 must receive prior written approval from the CJC, in addition to any other approvals required by law to the grantee. It excludes interagency agreements between units of government. And then it talks about some conflict of interest language, which I don't think applies. So I'm hoping that actually this process also is the prior written approval, because we'll put it into the application. But we were not made aware in Marion County that this was a requirement, since it was not written in the grant application, until an email I received on September 29th. And then it was confirmed on September 30th. Which was 1 week before the Board of Commissioners actually approved the plan, which was last week, and 2 weeks before it was due, and the Public Safety Coordinating Council just approved it last night. So that put us in a real difficult position, and I appreciate, Camber, you being able to figure out a solution for us to do this, since we were told that we would not be given a contract for any of the funding, the $3.5 million, if we did not name the victim services providers. I was a little bit troubled about the comment yesterday in the meeting that other counties were told that other counties were made to do this, I think is the way it was described. And the only way that the state really can make you do anything is through their written grant application requirements, which we just talked about were lacking in this particular situation. So in order to be good partners, we are going through with this, but I have major concerns and reservations about how all of this unfolded, and I just want to put that on the record. So I've said my piece. I'm on my soapbox, and all right, so we'll do it.
So regardless, would you like a motion at this time?
Sure.
Then I would. Madam Chair, I'd make a motion that we do approve the special procurement to contract with Liberty House and Center for Hope and Safety to provide victims assistance services through June 30th, 2017.
And I'll second the motion. Any further discussion? Nope. Those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, it's approved. Thank you. Okay, it is well past 9:30 when we noticed our public hearing. We have one last item under finance, and that's to consider approval of the fiscal year 2015-16 first supplemental budget. Rich Meinecker and Jeff White have been patiently waiting in the back of the room. Come forward now. We do not have anyone signed up for the public hearing other than and staff didn't sign up, but Rich and Jeff are here to walk us through what the items are. And since after Jeff leaves, will be no one left in the room, I don't think we'll have to worry about whether anyone didn't sign up. So welcome, and thank you for your patience, and go ahead and walk us through the first supplemental budget.
Okay, well, good morning to you. It's still morning. I'm Rich Meinecker from the Finance Department, and as you mentioned, this is Jeff White, the Chief Financial Officer. I'm here to present the first supplemental budget request for Marion County fiscal year 2015-16 budget. Oregon revised statutes require that increases in appropriation authority from the original adopted budget must be adopted by the governing body. In addition, any changes to the original adopted budget for expenditures that exceed 10% for each fund must be published in a local newspaper. Oh, okay. And a public hearing must be held to allow for public input on the proposed changes to the budget. Public notice of this supplemental budget was published in the Statesman Journal newspaper in accordance with statutory requirements. The first supplemental budget increases the total budget by $11,595,830. The revised budget is $391,694,812. 32 funds have budget changes. Many funds are changed as departments were required to adjust the net working capital of each fund to actual annually. I will review budget change highlights and state amounts to the nearest $1,000. Details of the first supplemental budget were reviewed by the Board of Commissioners at Management Update on October 5th. Countywide, the net increase to net working capital is $8.6 million, which is almost 75% of the total supplemental budget increase. The general fund budget will increase $2,031,000, comprised of a $2 million increase in net working capital and a $31,000 increase in transfer in from the Community Correction Fund. Within general fund departments, Community Services Department budget will decrease $394,000 as the annual $348,000 payment to OSU Extension Services is shifted to the general fund non-departmental budget and is paid out to a new entity. Personnel services and materials services expenses are reduced by $45,000 as a 0.5 FTE position, and its associated costs will be shifted to the Children and Families Fund. In non-departmental, transfers out increased $2,400,000. $348,000 is allocated to transfer to the Marion County Extension 4-H Service District. $45,000 will be transferred to the Children and Families Fund, and the $2,031,000 balance of available funds will be allocated to capital projects in 2 capital funds. The Capital Improvement Projects Fund budget will increase $377,000. Major resource items are a $105,000 transfer to the general fund and an increase of $268,000 in net working capital. Funds are allocated to 9 projects. County Schools Fund budget will increase $188,000 from an additional $65,000 state electric cooperative taxes and an additional $123,000 net working capital. The entire amount is allocated to payments to school districts. The Facility Renovation Fund budget will increase $2,554,000 as a result of a $1,927,000 transfer from the general fund and a $626,000 increase in net working capital. Contingency is reduced $226,000. $2,780,000 is then available to allocate to major projects. The Health Fund budget will increase $2,169,000, mostly from a $1,794,000 additional net working capital increase. There are also increases in state revenue and charges for services, partially offset by a small decrease in federal revenue. State funding is increased $244,000 for adult residential and foster home services. Charges for services are increased $180,000 for drug treatment and mental health services. The remainder of $1,720,000 is allocated to contingency. The Lottery and Economic Development Fund budget will increase by a net $69,000. Net working capital is increased $279,000, which is mostly offset by a $205,000 decrease in state revenue, as the Community Service Department will no longer manage a Marion Polk food share pass-through grant. M&S Contracted Services has two major offsetting adjustments. The $205,000 decrease as a result of the just mentioned eliminated grant was in the Economic Development Program. A partially offsetting $176,000 increase from net working capital is allocated to board allocation and business development grants in the Economic Development Program. The Public Works Fund budget will increase $2,621,000, of which $2,053,000 is derived from increased net working capital. Federal aid highway program grants $505,000, and a state ODOT grant $64,000. M&S increased $22,000 for several items. Capital outlay is increased $1,294,000 for 6 road and bridge projects, a public works campus building floor heat system, and vehicle engine replacement. Contingency is increased $797,000. The remaining $508,000 is allocated to ending fund balance. Are there any questions?
Questions? We went through all of this in a management update meeting, I think a week or so ago, and it's very straightforward. And Rich, you have a new format that saved you how many pages of?
26 pages saved.
Saved you 26
Yeah.
pages. See, and they say that government isn't trying to be more efficient all the time, so.
That's correct.
Very good. John, anything you want to add?
I appreciate Rich's work, and particularly his attempt to be more efficient with our paperwork and save trees. Thank you, Rich.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Madam Chair, if I could, then I'd make a motion to close the public hearing and approve the supplemental budget for fiscal year 2015-16.
And I will second your motion. And again, thank you for a very well laid out presentation. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
It's approved.
Thank you.
All right.
That always seems so simple for a lot of work.
Oh, it's a
We
ton of
know.
work. And what's interesting about it is the net working capital. So that came in much, much higher than we had thought, right? So now I'll have to change my talking points, because I always say we have a roughly 380 million budget, so I have to just up it by 10 million, right? 390. So that's my new number.
You say around 400.
Yeah, I don't want to go that far.
So,
Okay. So
yet,
that
anyway.
concludes our business today for our Wednesday board session. I'll read the Wednesday calendar. These are meetings where 2 or 3 commissioners will be present between October 14th and October 21st. We're just completing our board session here at the Senator Hearing Room at Courthouse Square. At noon today, Wednesday, October 14th, is the Family Building Blocks Dream Builders Luncheon at the Salem Convention Center here in Salem. At 2 o'clock is a Mid-Valley Workforce Board meeting, which is actually a strategic planning session that will involve a lot of people out at the Kaiser Civic Center in Iris A room. That's at 930 Shamawa Road Northeast in Kaiser. Tomorrow, October 15th at 8 a.m. is this, I thought that got canceled. Did the City of Salem breakfast get canceled?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, so City of Salem breakfast just canceled. We will not be meeting at the Sassy Onion. At 8:30, okay, so we skip Thursday. That was the only meeting. Just double check. Right, and then Friday, no meetings where we'll be together, so that brings us to Monday. At 8:30 is the Board of Commissioners calendar review in the Silverton Conference Room, 5th floor, here at Courthouse Square. That will be followed at 9 a.m. with management update and a service district meeting in the Silverton Conference Room. Then Tuesday, October 20th, is the Giving People a Second Chance community breakfast, and that will be held, actually the doors open at 7, the breakfast starts at 7:30 at the Broadway Commons in the Grant Highland Room, which is 206, 1300 Broadway Street Northeast in Salem. And all 3 commissioners and most of the board office will be serving as table captains and checking people in and doing all kinds of great stuff there. So I really appreciate all the help. Wednesday, a week from today, October 21st at 9 a.m., we will be back here in the Senator Hearing Room for our regular Wednesday board session, and that will be followed at noon by a working lunch with state and local dignities. And this is the Alliance for Hope assessment of our victim services, that a team will be here from out of state that will be reviewing all of our victim services, which fits nicely with our Domestic Violence Awareness Month and also fits nicely with the Hands and Words Are Not for Hurting proclamation that we passed today. That luncheon will be held in the Commissioner's Boardroom on the 5th floor here at Courthouse Square. So I was going to mention, we had a Public Safety Coordinating Council meeting last night, and 4 to 6 yesterday, late afternoon, evening. And one of the topics that we spent some time on was the issue of homelessness. So speaking of City of Salem, Mayor Anna Peterson has been very interested in us addressing the homeless issue. It's been something that the City of Salem's been very concerned about. Jerry Moore, who's the police chief, who sits on the council also, has been talking about these quality of life crimes, and I know we talk about them at the Community Corrections Board when the sheriff and the 3 commissioners get together monthly for that. So we started out the meeting just to kind of launch the conversation. We watched a video that from the Jon Stewart show that talked about homelessness and talked about Housing First that they're doing in Utah. It's a really remarkable program. They reduced their homeless population by 80%, something like that. It's just incredible what they've done through the Housing First program. And then we had a presentation by some AVID students. These are students from Sprague High School in a program called AVID, and I can't remember what it stands for, but it's a program that Sandy Husk actually went to work with, I think, down in California. That's why she left our organization. So these 3 students, there was one student, I think it was MJ was his name, contacted me last spring and asked me for information about homelessness. So I connected him to our 10-year plan to end homelessness and talked about what we were doing. And then in the Statesman Journal, there was an article about the presentation that they gave at the Capitol, and there were probably 20 to 30 students that were involved in this presentation. So when we decided we were going to do this, take on this topic, when the council talked about it, I contacted the teacher of the AVID program. Hitesh actually got me the contact information, and she rounded up 3 of the students who came back. So this is, when you teach school, you realize that once a group is done with the project and it's the spring of the year before, it's close to a miracle that anyone would be interested in coming back the following fall. I mean, they may have graduated, they may not even be at the school. If they are at the school, they've moved on to other things and other classes. But we had 3 of those students that came last night and just did a tremendous job giving a presentation. And their goal was to try to change public policy. That's what they wanted to do. And they had an idea about how there might be, I think, a kind of a one-stop for homeless people where they could get information. That was part of their presentation. And so this morning I got an email from Jacqueline Pope, who is their teacher at Sprague, and she said, "Good morning, Janet. I was working with students yesterday after school and wasn't able to make it to the meeting. I hope it went well. The AVID students found me this morning invigorated and excited about what took place. They loved meeting everyone and seeing the city taking the issue of homelessness seriously. The first thing Kenneth said this morning was, 'It was the coolest thing ever.' Thank you again for the invitation and giving them the opportunity to share their ideas with you and the Public Safety Council. Have a wonderful day, Ms. Jacqueline Pope." So that kind of made my morning when I heard that. And they did just a really excellent job, and they fielded questions from probably 5 or 6 different council members that, just put up their hand after they were done and asked them different questions that weren't real softball questions, kind of what their research said, what they found out, what they thought ought to happen, and they did a very good job responding to those questions. So what I wrote back to her was that we will be, Hitesh is working on setting up a meeting with myself and the mayor, and then Warren Bednar's, the mayor's in Japan right now, so Warren is on city council, and this is kind of an issue that he's taken on, so he sat in for the mayor yesterday, so he wants to be involved. And so we'll be meeting together to try to figure out what they want to do for a process. Probably would involve some sort of a work group that we could put together that would not just be City of Salem, but it would be a county level work group. Would like to have, just thinking of parameters that the board might put together a resolution that would help create the work group, and the City of Salem might take some action to appoint some people to it, and then we could solicit people from other jurisdictions to be on it and see what we could do in terms of strategies. The other thing I might say is that the Community Action Agency attended and assisted with the PowerPoint presentation that we put together on the 10-year plan. And they are doing some really great work through Arches. They just have such a limited amount of resource to be able to really attack the problem. And then I also invited our Shelley Wilkins-Ahinger, to sit in and listen to what was going on, and have not had a chance to touch base with her, but asked her just to listen and see what ideas she could come up with to help us with this. So what they talked about in the video was that some of the solutions cities come up with is they ban homeless people from the sidewalks, or they ban them from the parks or whatever, but there's not, the strategy isn't around how to proactively help them not be homeless anymore. And I think that would be our goal of this group. We did discuss camps, which I very much don't like, and neither does the police chief, and neither does the sheriff, and so that would not be ever on any list that I'm involved with. Warren Bednar's talked about educating people about the panhandling issue, that there's so many people out with cardboard placards on the street corners, and the more that we support that as a community, the more that it actually is counter to what needs to happen to solve the problem. But anyway, it was a very interesting presentation. I think everyone enjoyed it, but I was especially happy to hear that these students felt like it was worth their time to come all the way downtown on a school day, and they stayed for the whole rest of the meeting, so they stayed until 6 o'clock, which also I thought was pretty good on their part.
It sounds like quite a meeting, but as I was thinking of getting back to it, other than just a statement to end homelessness, what are these kids, what do they support? What are their ideas? Anything jump at you?
Well, they did research about Utah and Arizona, and we have actually drawn the plans out.
How's that different than a camp?
Oh, they actually provide real homes, not a camp, apartment living. And so they actually place people in housing. And that's the idea. The idea has been that in the past that people have to do certain things in order to get housing, but this is that you put them in housing first. That's why they call it housing first, and then wrap services around them. And they interviewed a guy on there, and of course it was a comedy because it was Jon Stewart. And so they asked him, well, if we just keep handing you these things, won't you become dependent on 4 walls and a roof? And he gives him a look, and then maybe you don't want to be poor anymore. And he looks at the guy and he goes, nobody wants to be poor, he says. And then talked about what having the roof, just the simple fact of someone having an address helps them get a job, because when you fill out a job application, if you have no address, it's kind of hard to even get to the next level.
So that was the one they liked the most, some type of housing.
Yeah, the housing first, which interestingly is in our 10-year plan that we adopted in 2009, and now it is 2015, so it's 6 years into this 10-year plan. But as I said several times when I met with Community Action and last night at the meeting, our goal is not to duplicate any work that any other group is doing in the county. It's not trying to usurp or to take over what anyone else might want to do. I think we just want to stick the size D battery into this effort and see if we can give it a little bit of a boost through the efforts of some elected officials getting more intentionally involved in it. And so we will tap the There's a coalition that's been meeting of some faith-based folks that have been meeting through Salem Leadership Foundation. Community Action, as I mentioned, has an effort going on. The two housing authorities, the Salem and Marion County, obviously will need to be involved. The City Council for Salem sits as the board of the Salem Housing Authority. We sit as the board of the Marion County Housing Authority. So right there we have some real strong expertise and resources to be able to figure it out. But as we've talked about at our housing authority meetings, and this came up yesterday too, even with an increase in the voucher program, there is just there are so few units out there for people. I mean, Shelley said, what, we have over 200 vouchers out with people that are begging landlords to accept, and then landlords would accept, but they have no vacancies. So, and the places that may have a vacancy are priced so far outside the realm of using a voucher that they just are not even relevant. So it's really a big issue.
Is Habitat for Humanity involved?
They are not, but you know, I went to their breakfast. You went to their breakfast too, and that certainly would be one element. We talked about, they did the homeless count, and there are probably in their count 700 people that are homeless right now, and Habitat, you know, kind of does one house at a time. So, you know, I mean, certainly they could be a partner, but I think if we were actually to try to increase the capacity of housing, we'd more likely need to get some of the developers and builders in the community involved to find out what it would take. And there are ups and downs to doing projects, as they call them, where if you put people together who are right in a concentration, it doesn't always work very well, although it looked like that's what they had done in Utah. But I need to read up more on what specifically the Utah and Arizona models did. We just got us to the first point of introducing the topic last night.
I just want to change the subject a little bit. It's, I shouldn't say somewhat related, but it seems to be. But your reentry breakfast that you worked so hard on is Tuesday. You went over it real quick. I know, at least I believe it's all sold out, but I thought maybe you could take a minute and just talk. What are you trying to accomplish here, just for people that essentially maybe won't be there?
So we are meeting at the Broadway Commons. We have 8 people that sit at a table and 24 tables. So that's 192 places at tables. And we had last week 219 people that had signed up. And we've had a few more that have signed up and a few that have dropped off. So I just kind of ballparked it at 220 when I sent out the email to the table captains last night, which means that we'll have people in overflow seating. And if people still want to come, we can probably accommodate them. We have about 20 chairs that we put around the perimeter. But it's the 7th annual Giving People a Second Chance breakfast. It has really been focused on the Marion County Reentry Initiative and the efforts that Jeff Wood in particular and his parole and probation staff and a lot of partners, Chemeketa Community College, Community Action, Bridgeway Recovery Services, ResCare now, which is the employment provider, trying to think, Dominus Resource Center is under Community Action. I know I'm leaving somebody out, but health department's involved. But a lot of different partners have been working together to try to drop our recidivism rate, which means that we send people to prison, they get released, they come back to our community. I think we saw in my presentation last week was, 92% or something like that are actually from our community. So the lion's share certainly are our residents, and we want them to be successful and not continue a criminal lifestyle, and to be people that reunite with their families and give back to the community, get a job, have a place to live. So all of those types of initiatives go through those providers that work together. So in 2002, our recidivism rate was at 36%. Last year it was at 14%, so we've dropped significantly. We have a little blip up that's 21% this year. I'll try to talk about that real quickly too. We're going through the data, but things will go up and down, and it's a different cohort that they're looking at because it's a 3-year look back. But so the purpose of the breakfast actually is to educate the community annually and to gain public support really for the work that we're doing. Up until we started working together, and when parole and probation was sort of doing the work by themselves, it really was a best kept secret. You know, people weren't really aware of all the work that they did. And so now we have the community, business people, we get a lot of people too that have loved ones that have gone to prison that have a particular interest in the issue will come. And then it is a fundraising breakfast. Last year we raised $17,000 for a client fund that allows the various nonprofits to purchase things that their grant funding and their government funding won't allow them to purchase. So things like if you want to get an identification card, and that costs an individual money, and you can't get a job without an identification card, you can't get an apartment without an identification card, but if you don't have a job, how do you afford the, what is it, $60 or $80 or whatever it costs to go in and get that? They can use that client fund to help someone out if they don't have any other resources. Eyeglasses, we were out, Jolene and I were out taking photographs for the video a week ago Friday, and we were telling the guys that they rounded up to be the guinea pigs in our pictures what we were doing, and talked about the client fund. And one of the guys said, did it pay for my eyeglasses? And he pointed, he was wearing eyeglasses. And then you looked around and like almost all of them were wearing eyeglasses. And I think they have a contract with a place that does eye exams and gives pretty low cost eyeglasses to the group. But the dollars go for that as well. This year our goal is $20,000, and we are going to share 10% of the proceeds with the victim services clients. In doing the work that we've done this year that we talked about in our contract review board, one of the comments that Jane Downing made, who's the Center for Hope and Safety director, is that she's gone to the breakfast every year, and certainly she thinks it's a really worthy cause, but she works with clients who have left their home on a moment's notice because they've been victims of domestic violence, and they need bus passes, and they need eyeglasses, and they don't have anything but the clothes on their back, and so they've developed almost like a little, what would you call it? They have a couple rooms over there where you can get diapers and food and clothing and that type of thing. Clothing closet is what I was kind of trying to come up with. So we will share 10% of whatever we bring in with that victim services fund that they have there, so that they can do the same thing for victims.
The CCTV tape, that seemed like they're there, no?
Well, actually, CCTV helps us record our interviews with the clients and also with the staff that go into the videos. And then when we sit down with Allied Video that puts it together, we don't have to pay them for the studio time and the interview time, because CCTV does that for us. And
They're not actually at the event. I thought maybe a way people could look in and see what's going on.
No, but Allied does record it. We contract with them to do that. We have every year. Then they do the sound, and they do all of put their screens up so that we can be sideways rather than lengthwise. And then after the breakfast is over, then we take the DVD over to CCTV, and they will play all but the last part where we ask for money, because they're not allowed to show money requests
So should we tell people that's really what's happening?
Right, yeah, so they just cut it off.
Yes.
So if you know why the thing doesn't go till the end, that's why.
For 7 years.
Right, yeah. So they take off the last 30 seconds.
I know it's
or
a big
whatever.
event and how hard you work at it.
Yeah, I was over 3 hours yesterday working on the video, and the videos are going to be really good again this year. So it's a lot of work, but there are certainly, you've been a table captain, John's been a table captain with Jan and Barb's help, and we have the board office staff and also community services have been working really hard in organizing the table captain packets, getting the program ready, the commitment cards. They're going to be there checking people in, helping seat people, all of that. So it takes a lot of work to make it go.
You know, I just noticed we must be really boring. We start out with a full house.
I know.
There isn't one person would stay for us.
Right. Well, if we were like the morning news people at 4 a.m., nobody'd be in the studio
Is
there
that what
either.
it
So,
is?
right. Yeah.
All
So
right.
we're just talking to whoever happens to be listening out there in the hinterlands or turns on their YouTube channel to watch the board.
Can I move to a
Session.
different subject?
Oh.
Sure.
Notice that I'm wearing my baseball tie today?
Yes.
I watched the Cubbies yesterday.
Yes, the Cubs have moved on to the National League Championship. They beat the Cardinals last night. I was very excited. Having played baseball in my youth, it's America's game, not football. I
Very
get
good.
feedback on that, but
Well, congratulations, John.
Yeah,
Got a
well,
flu
I had
shot
nothing to
and
do
your team
with it,
won.
but-
So-
Chicago, they're from Illinois, right?
Yes. Illinois.
All right, anything else? All right, are we good? So
No,
I'm
but
not
adjourn it anyway.
Right, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. We are adjourned.